Hello everyone, it's Vritzien. After some hiccups that I'll talk about later, Ice Queendom is finally premiered. And while, as I'm writing this, I'm feeling a little compromised by the existential terror of watching our civil rights being eroded in front of our very eyes, I still wanted to share my initial thoughts on Ice Queendom's first few episodes. That said, I also want to go into a few side rants about some background stuff that's happened between my last video and this. If you want to skip to my discussion of the premiere itself, jump to the section at this timecode. And of course, a spoiler warning for the first 3 episodes. So I have to start by going over how comically terrible RT has been handling this premiere. On Wednesday the 22nd, Geoff made a community post explaining how the series would roll out. While the full post will be linked in the description below, the most relevant portion of it, shown here, described how and where the fans could see the premiere on the 24th, as well as the release schedule for the rest of the series. And yeah, this post confirms that Ice Queendom is a 12-part limited series. Put a pin in that, because I have some other thoughts about that in the context of the premiere itself. But back to the point, Geoff explained that Ice Queendom will be premiering in 3 places: during a live stream on the Emotion Label YouTube channel, and then to first members and premium members of Rooster Teeth and Crunchyroll respectively, at the same time. The first issue came with the live stream. As Ice Queendom was sequentially premiering live on Japanese television and on this stream, it was scheduled to start at 5 AM Central Time. However, the show's official website stated that the stream would be viewable up until July 2nd. The website also mentioned that before the premiere, the show's theme would be premiered live, and Ruby and Yang's Japanese voice actresses would discuss more information about the show. So keeping all of that, and knowing that 3 episodes combined must be at least an hour long to fit with TV runtimes in mind, I reasonably assumed that I could tune in at 6 when I wake up normally. That time comes, I pull up the stream, and lo and behold, the stream's already ended and can no longer be viewed. Alright, I think to myself, maybe the stream VOD is rendering. It should be up by the time I get to work. Nope, still down. I go to RT's website and look it up, nothing is found. Okay, I check Rooster Teeth's, RWBY's, and Ice Queendom's official Twitters, and nothing. Fortunately for me, I was able to use the free trial of Crunchyroll Premium to finally watch the premiere, and eventually it did come up on RT's website, but it's absolutely hilarious to me how abysmal this rollout was on seemingly every level. Crunchyroll had the premiere up, as far as I could tell, immediately, yet it didn't show up on Rooster Teeth's website for hours. And up until that point, the only signs of life from Rooster Teeth came from the poor intern running the RT support account, saying that it would be up later today. This also comes hot off the heels of several other issues regarding Rooster Teeth's transparency in recent months. I'm not as familiar with those, but Arnold posted a thread venting his frustrations with Rooster Teeth on this and the aforementioned other issues, which you can also find the link to in the description. I didn't think I had much to add to this conversation, but as I was writing the script, I discovered something. So there were actually 2 posts on the 13th on the official Ice Queendom website regarding the premiere. Notice that in the first post, there's no distinction made between Japanese and non-Japanese audiences, while the second divides them into 2 separate viewing categories. As well, you'll notice the asterisk on the second one completely absolving itself of responsibility of when Ice Queendom will be available for foreign audiences. These 2 posts give 2 completely different messages, even though they're supposed to be referring to the exact same thing. No wonder this premiere was a mess. The show's own official website can't even give a clear message of how it would work. Lastly, not as a way to toot my own horn here, but this complete lack of transparency of what Ice Queendom is, and the ambiguous marketing / PR campaign surrounding it up until this point, is exactly why I've been so apprehensive about it from the very beginning. First, they make us wait a full month after the initial reveal to even tell us it's an anime, leaving fertile ground for disappointment from fans who interpreted the reveal to mean different things, something that I, as part of the Pokemon community, am very familiar with. Second, they confuse the entire fanbase on the canonicity to the main series, which I'll get to shortly. Third, they don't even tell us it's a limited series until 2 days before the premiere. Fourth, we're left entirely in the dark of what the plot of the show actually is going to be up until this premiere, and then all of this happens. Ice Queendom has been in some level of development for the last 8 years now, if Geoff is to be believed. How is it possible there's still this many hangups? Like I said, it's honestly comical at this point. So on that canonicity thing, literally the day after I posted my trailer reaction video, Geoff made his community post on where Ice Queendom fits within the RWBY IP broadly. While the majority of the content of this post isn't relevant anymore post-launch, and I've already rambled enough before the meat of the video, I've been feeling kind of spiteful about this for the last couple months, so I'm throwing in my 2 cents anyway. In case you haven't heard, here's a relevant paragraph from Geoff's post. Like the former, the full community post will be linked in the description below. So, petty point, the first 2 episodes of Ice Queendom don't cover volumes 1 and 2, it doesn't even finish going through volume 1 till the end of the 3rd episode. That aside, this whole Canon-Adjacent thing has been bothering me since the first time I saw it. I understand and respect their goals of allowing the Ice Queendom team taking the series in whatever direction they want. However, what I don't understand is why they were, and seemingly still are, so resistant on calling Ice Queendom an alternate universe. Now, you might call this a purely semantic issue, which it partially is, but the problem here, as clarified in this reply, is that the team behind Ice Queendom has a completely nonsensical, self-serving definition of what an AU is just to avoid calling it one. Like, if a story is only an AU if it's in a completely different universe, then sticking to purely RWBY here, shouldn't every single fanfiction that doesn't explicitly change the rules of the universe be canon to the main series? The universe is exactly the same. And more broadly, wouldn't that mean every single story set in the real world is canon to each other, regardless of how little sense it would make? Geoff claims this is a potato-potato distinction, but what it really is Rooster Teeth handing us a potato, telling us it's a tomato, and when we ask why they're not calling it a potato, they tell us, oh, to us, a potato is only something that grows on vines. Like, that's wrong on like every single level. Honestly, I think this stems from a larger issue Rooster Teeth has with canonicity broadly, but that's something I might just make its own video on to talk about. Now, to finally get to the premiere itself, and welcome to everyone else who skipped to this part. So, what's my first impression of Ice Queendom? Well, honestly, I'm still pretty lukewarm on it. Like, I'm not trying to be a contrarian here or anything. The art style looks great, and the animation is mostly clean and crisp, but that's all fluff in the grand scheme of things. That said, there's still some parts of the story that I think improve on the main series, like how it begins with RWBY at Summer Rose's grave, talking about her excitement about Yang getting into Beacon, and the added bits of context to the white and black trailers that bridge the gap between them in episode 1. Though, to be fair here, I'm not sure how much of that comes from the show's actually good writing, or just the fact that they already had most of this pre-written for them. The problem, at least to me, is the fact that outside of those handful of moments, up until the Nightmare Grim becomes the focus, Ice Queendom is a little too faithful to the originals. Excluding a handful of scenes that were added for it, what we have here is a near word-for-word copy of Volume 1. I'll admit up front I wasn't exactly excited to rehash the Beacon arc at all, and that my frustrations of trying to watch the premiere might have influenced my opinion, and I also recognize that, to some degree, this was necessary to catch people up on the world and the characters before diverging. However, I can't help but wonder, why did they write it like this? It puts me in a weird position where I don't want to unfairly judge Ice Queendom by the successes and failures of the main series, but at the same time, it's so aggressively faithful to the main series that I can't help but make the comparison. So whatever, we're comparing them now. The first issue I have with this word-for-word copying is the pacing. My god. I know there's not a lot of plot in Volume 1 in the first place, but Ice Queendom jumped from beat to beat so quickly that I ended up tuning most of it out. How am I supposed to care about what's going on when the story itself treats it as if it were saying, I don't care about this, you don't care about this, so let's run through this as fast as humanly possible to get to the new stuff, which ties into my other major issue here. There are a handful of points here that, to me, feel like the Ice Queendom writers took the Volume 1 script, cut out all the pieces they wanted, shuffled them around a bit, and plugged in the gaps with whatever, regardless of the surrounding context. From character-defining moments, plot beats, tone, or even just comedic timing. It just gives off the overall impression that Ice Queendom was written with no real regard for the story it was adapting.
So you may prepare your guardians. Build your monuments to a so-called free world. But take heed. There will be no victory in strength.
But perhaps victory is in the simpler things that you've long forgotten. Things that require a smaller, more honest soul.
光の森人たちよ、心しなさい。力のみを信じる者に勝利はないと。
勝利とは実は純粋なものなのかもしれない。時の流れの果てに人が忘れてしまった紳士でささやかな心のあり方のように。
Well, that's great.
たく上等じゃ。
あなたのせいで森を焼くことになりましたのよ。
Hold up. Wait a minute.
Which on its own isn't necessarily a bad thing. I don't want to dwell on individual examples right now, but to highlight my point, take the scene of John versus Carden and the subsequent roof talk with Pyrrha. Since this isn't the same universe, supposedly, wouldn't that mean up until his talk with Pyrrha on the roof, John wouldn't have any aura? And if he didn't have any aura, what exactly is being monitored during this fight? And considering this follows the same pace as Volume 1 of the main series, this arc takes place several weeks or months after the entrance exam. So how has John made it this far without even knowing what aura is, let alone not having it unlocked? See, this isn't a problem in the main series because Pyrrha unlocks John's aura during the entrance exam. I hope you see my point. This all comes back to the question I posed earlier. Why did they write Ice Queendom like this in the first place? As I pondered that question while watching the episodes and writing the script, it became more and more apparent to me that, at least with what's been shown so far, this entire Beacon arc rehash is nothing more than a waste of time and resources. I know I haven't even touched on the new elements of Ice Queendom yet, but I'm fairly confident that, based on the direction the show seems to be going, the vast majority of the first 3 episodes will have little to no effect on the rest rest of the series, which I'll expand upon shortly. Remember, this is a limited series, meaning these 12 episodes were written and made under the assumption that there wouldn't be anything after this brief little story, and they decided to spend the first quarter of that runtime doing exactly the same thing Volume 1 did, but worse. To be fair, I don't know who is responsible for that decision, or maybe I'm just flat out wrong here, but I really don't think I am. Even still, at this point in time, it makes me wonder what the purpose of constraining Ice Queendom to more or less religiously stick to the main series canon is. So why don't we move on to talk about the actual new stuff then? Though, if I'm being honest, my thoughts on the new stuff is very similar to my thoughts on the show broadly. But to explain the plot changes, it seems I was half right in my prediction video. We're gonna have a version of Weiss birthed out of her desire to become team leader, and will involve our Team RWBY saving Weiss from it. However, the way it manifests is through the new Nightmare Grim and our new professor Zaiden. During the entrance exam, both John and Weiss are infected with the Grim, which feeds on their aura to grow. John gets trapped in a dream, which gives the new professor a chance to exposit how the Grim works and shows how it's beaten. This is where my confidence from earlier comes from. Weiss falls under the Nightmare spell, and the rest of the series is Blake, Yang, and RWBY entering the dream to save her. It also seems to explain the design changes for our characters, like Blake having a tail and the claw gloves. Lastly, love our androgynous king Professor Zaiden, and I think his Dreamcatcher weapon is kinda cool. That said, he doesn't escape my criticisms either. Despite the fact that we're shown Weiss's possession mark well before John's, Professor Zaiden not only being able to sense nightmares, but also explicitly states there's more than one around, and that Weiss was in the room with him and Juniper while they purged John's nightmare. He doesn't seem to notice Weiss being possessed as well, ignoring for a second how the marks on Weiss were already clearly visible during the team formation ceremony, and they lampshade Weiss being a possible host for it. How is it possible Professor Zaiden didn't figure it out? Well, I know why. Obviously because the plot demands it, but that doesn't make it not a flaw. Also, while I think Professor Zaiden's semblance is cool and all, something that you can only find out on the website as of right now, go figure, I have no idea why someone has to go inside the dream to kill it, or why it has to be someone's close friends, or how exactly Nightmare Grim were dealt with before someone like Professor Zaiden came around, but I honestly don't even want to approach that rabbit hole. Anyways, that's all I really had to say here. But what do you think about Ice Queendom? Let me know in the comments below. Also, for those of you waiting for my next episode of RWBY from a writer's perspective, it'll be out soon. It's just been a struggle recently to get myself to work on it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I gotta make a video on RTX. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.